So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but there's been a lot going on with Trump, this country, and this tariff war that he seemed to have gotten us all into with our supposed allies and trade partners. And whether you care about this or not, this is definitely something you want to pay attention to, because a lot of what's going on will have a direct impact on American citizens and our bank accounts, impacting low-income Americans the most. And I want to tell you exactly what you can do while you can to avoid getting hit too hard by the effects of all of this madness. So unless you've been hiding under a rock or just been completely uninterested in what's going on, ever since Trump got in office, he's been causing a lot of drama. Not only nationally with all of these federal layoffs, program terminations, and all of this Doge stuff, but internationally as well. He's been going crazy with the tariffs, which are taxes imposed on goods imported to another country. Now, there's always been tariffs, and in theory, if tariffs become too high, which means the cost to import goods are too expensive, then hopefully it'll lead to citizens and businesses of a country supporting and investing in their country, which overall contributes to the economic growth of that country. But the truth of the matter is that some products are meant to be made in other areas of the world. Different climates or conditions contribute to the quality of certain foods and products. And some products we don't even make here in the United States, or we can't make here. For example, my wife has a hair company where she sells raw luxury hair extensions, and it's shipped from a particular country. And no, it's not China, but it's real hair from the citizens of that country, which can't be bought in the United States. So some things it's physically impossible to get from here, and others it may cost more to make than it would to have it shipped from another country. But no matter what the reason is, having good trade relationships is beneficial to all countries. But with all of that being said, Trump has still managed to have gotten himself into a "my tariffs are bigger than yours" contest with our trade partners, and it seems like this was his objective from day one. As soon as he got in office, he issues a memo titled America First Trade Policy, outlining our country's trade priorities. It states that current trade policies are unfair and unbalanced for America. So his aim will be to implement a trade policy that promotes investments and productivity in America, which will benefit American citizens. Less than 2 weeks later, he announces that there will be a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, and an additional 10% on China. Well, that same day, Canada responded by standing on business, announcing tariffs of their own, targeting food, appliances, clothes, vehicles, and more. I mean, that's fair, right? You hit us with tariffs, we hit you with tariffs. Now, 2 days later, America reached an agreement with both Canada and Mexico, pausing the tariffs for 1 month. But China was still hit with that 10% tariff, which was imposed the next day. And in retaliation, you know what China stood on? Business, announcing a 10 to 15% tariff on U.S. agricultural products. Less than a week later, Trump announces a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. And then 3 weeks later, Trump raises new tariffs on all imports from China from 10% to 20%. And a 25% tariff on all imports from Mexico goes into effect, as well as a 10 to 25% tariff on Canada. The same day, China and Canada retaliated with more tariffs of their own. A week later, the European Union retaliates with tariffs. A couple weeks after that, the United States announced more tariffs. China retaliates. It's just been a complete mess, and Trump hasn't even been in office for 3 months yet. And in case you were wondering to yourself, okay, these countries are steady duking it out and have to pay a tax on imported goods. What does that have to do with me as a consumer? Well, it has a lot to do with you, because the countries aren't the ones paying the tax. You are. So let's just say a shoe company in New York orders a pair of shoes from China, and the US government adds a tax on those sneakers. Now, the company in New York not only has to pay for the sneakers, but they also have to pay the US government. So if the sneakers are $100 and there's a 20% tariff on those sneakers, the US company has to pay the government $20. Now, when the company goes to sell those sneakers in their stores to their US customers, guess how much the price of those sneakers just increased? You guessed it, $20. So in the end, the consumer is the one footing the bill. Even though that customer supported and bought from an American company, they still had to pay for that tariff that was charged to the company. So in the end, rolls downhill. Consumers are going to feel it the most. And this is what's going to happen to every item and product that's imported, which ranges from everyday products like soap and toothpaste to more expensive big ticket items like automobiles. Once prices start to increase, consumers are going to feel it immediately. And the sad part is that the low income households will feel it the most, with the cost of necessities and essential goods rising like food and energy, and them having fewer savings to pull from. And along with consumers having to come out of pocket more, all of these price hikes distorts the market. Artificially inflating the cost of imports prevents markets from operating freely, as consumers are more likely to just go with the cheaper product, which disrupts supply and demand. Now, with all that's been going on, of course it had a huge impact on the economy. Even the mere mention of tariffs, when Trump first started talking about it, was enough to shake up the stock market. Every time threats were mentioned, the stock market would drop. And then an agreement would be reached for an extension, the stock market would bounce back. And the process kept repeating itself over and over up until April 2nd, a day that Trump termed Liberation Day, when he announced that the U.S. will impose reciprocal tariffs on more than 60 countries, a 10% tariff on all other countries, as well as a 25% tariff on foreign automakers. Of course, China retaliated the next day, saying that they would impose an additional 34% tariff on U.S. goods. There goes China again, standing on business. And this back and forth sunk the stock market, with the Dow dropping 2,200 points and the S&P 500 dropping 10% within 2 days. This means that there's some uncertainty, and investors aren't too confident with how things are going and what this tariff war can do and lead to. Another way that tariffs can possibly affect our economy is with jobs. Even though Trump is arguing that tariffs is a good thing because it'll bring manufacturing back to the United States, which in turn creates more U.S. jobs, experts are arguing that tariffs can negatively impact businesses, affecting their profit or forcing them to change their supply sources or to make other changes, which ultimately can lead to layoffs. And unfortunately, low-income families' jobs are often the first to go, which is also why these tariffs can impact them the most. However, there is a world where tariffs can create jobs. They protect local industries from foreign competition as imported goods become more expensive, which can ultimately help domestic businesses grow. This may incentivize them to increase production, hire more workers, and expand their operations. But former senior advisor at the White House Office of Management and Budget, Susan Helper, said that this doesn't look likely to be one of those cases, given the fact that there isn't enough certainty or confidence that the tariffs will be stable enough for businesses to invest and create new and better jobs. So what exactly can consumers do, or how can they prepare for what's to come? Well, when it comes to tariffs, it's ultimately out of your hands. Now, of course, you can bargain shop or try to live below your means, and make sure you budget your finances so you won't waste unnecessary money. But tariffs is a decision made way above our pay grade. But another thing that you can do is stock up on items that you know you'll need that you consistently buy. There's no telling when the prices of products will start to rise, as it comes down to a company's inventory. But in an effort to prepare and respond to what's going on, some companies may push those prices up sooner than later. Now, one thing consumers can look out for is shrinkflation, which is a tactic used by companies to hide cost increases by changing the design of packaging. For instance, the newer packaging may offer a smaller amount of that product, but the price may stay the same. That way, you're thinking prices didn't rise, but you're actually receiving less product. So pay attention out there. Now, to be completely fair, yes, Trump's tariffs decisions have been met with alarming concern, given the fact that he imposed such steep import taxes against our 3 biggest trading partners and also other countries. But the outcome remains to be seen. There is a slight chance that this may have a positive outcome. We don't know. Tariffs can be used to address unfair trade practices, shore up domestic industries, and can provide narrow and targeted protection for key sectors. And for the government, it generates additional revenue. But unfortunately, economists and researchers say that what's happening now falls well outside of those historical norms. And it seems like Trump is using tariffs as some sort of bully tactic to get what he wants. For example, to get other countries to halt the flow of illegal immigrants and fentanyl. Many believe that he's using these tariffs as a strong arm tactic. And it seems like the other countries are standing up against it. And unfortunately, I don't know if Trump's ego will let him back down. The bottom line is trade war produces no winners. Some economies may be harmed more than others, but there's nothing positive about a trade war, as consumers are bound to feel the burn. Well, in the meantime, the effects of these tariffs remains to be seen. Thanks for watching.